Hi guys, welcome back to Have Kayaking. I know it's been a while. 2023 has been a great year for me on the water, and one of the things that I attribute it to changes I've made from the last few years is how I set up my line. So I just wanted to make a special video on what I'm doing with my fishing lines out on the kayak, and I think you're going to appreciate this. So one of the first things we see at the stores are there's all these fishing lines to choose from, and it gets a little bit overwhelming. What line do I want to put on my rod? Well, in 2021, 2022, I was playing around with a couple different things. Some guys said, hey, the braid works really good. Some guys said mono works really good. And then you come across fluorocarbon. Well, the fish can't see fluorocarbon. Well, that's got to be great. And yet all of these lines have their special purpose. When it comes to trolling for fish, there's certain qualities about each of these lines that come into play. So the question is, which one of these are the type of line you want to put on your rod for trolling for big fish? And the answer is, I think all of them. Well, let's first of all talk about the test, the strength of the line. Kayaks are not boats. And what I mean by that is, when you're in a boat with 8, 12 lines out, running out, and you get a 20-pound salmon on, you got all these other lines, all this other equipment out there, you kind of, I wouldn't say want to horse them in, but you need to be able to control the fish. And so guys usually are running 30, sometimes 50-pound test line, and that's okay. In the kayak, however, you are running 3 lines at the most, because that's what you can use here, at least in Wisconsin. And because of that, you can go a little lighter. So what's the advantage of going lighter? Well, you can get more line on your spool. Mono stretches a little bit further, the lighter the line. And lighter line just sinks easier as far as getting a weight down. The diameter is less, so it's not getting as much drag. I go a 20-pound test. So why do I say all these lines are good? Well, I'm actually putting them all together. I've got a couple different sizes of fluorocarbon. I like to use 20-pound for most of the year for salmon. If I'm going for trout in the spring, I've got some 10-pound fluoro. And so what I'll do with that is make a 2-foot leader. And I've got that set up right here. And that 2-foot leader is starts off with a snap only. Get that up nice and close in a second here. See that there. And the nice thing about the snap is this particular snap is made by VMC, and it's their #1 size, or size 1, and it's rated for up to 68 pounds. It's small enough that the J-plug hole goes through it. It's like a lot of clips, it's lighter than a snap swivel. And because of that, you get a little more action out of your lures, especially your spoons. You just see these spoons flip-flopping in the water nice. That's a lot of times what catches the fish. The color helps for sure. But if you had to tell me what I'm more concerned about is, are you going the right speed? Do you have the right lure? Do you have the right line? Do you have the right clip so that you're getting good action out of your lure? Of course, dark conditions, bright colored lures, etc., etc. There's definitely, glow in the dark for early morning or evening fishing. But as far as I'm concerned, it's more the action than the color. With the exception to some of those special cases. Okay, so I have 2 feet of fluorocarbon, and if you are familiar with fluorocarbon, it's a little more brittle than monofilament. And so because of that, there's a special knot. Usually fishing lines show what you should do. And so what I'm using is the polymer knot. It's pretty easy, and we'll probably show you that on a different video if that's of interest. There's certainly plenty of videos out there that show how to do that kind of knot. Plus, like I said, it's on the back of the most of fishing lines will tell you what they recommend. got an old pen reel here. So from there, I have a swivel attached to the other end of my leader. And what that does is it makes sure, of course, there's not going to be any twisting of the line in case this thing starts to spin. And of course, spoons are going to spin on you naturally. So you need to have a swivel. And then that swivel is attached to an actual snap swivel. That's in case I decide to disregard the leader altogether. I can still put anything I want on the end of my line. So that part of the line from this snap swivel now goes out for about 25 feet. But before that, I have one of these little rubber core bullet weights. This is a 1/4 ounce weight. And what I like about this is two things. One is with the 2-foot leader, when you're sitting in a kayak and you need to change a line, first thing you're going to notice is the long rod and the wind and a little twist in the line. And this thing is going to wrap around your rod, which gets real irritating to try and undo in the kayak. But with a 2-foot leader and this weight, it pulls it away from the rod tip naturally. And so I find it very easy to just come in and, you know, get the line, give it a little slack and snap your swivel, get your lure off, and you're ready to put something else on. So the next line is mono. Like I said earlier, 20-pound mono is what I like to go with. And that's whether I'm using that for spring fishing or for smaller trout or for salmon. Now, that is only 25 feet, and I'm going to pull the rest of this line out when we get to the next line. My next line is going to be braid. I love the old-fashioned pen reels here. So the braid is connected to that mono, and what that allows me to do, as guys will probably already be aware of, is being able to snap on a clip-on weight. The mono to the braid is going to stop that weight from going any further. Now I've got this hooked up to the rod here, but you get the picture. So being what braid is, this is a 20-pound test. In other words, it can handle 20 pounds of pull before it snaps, but it's only 6-pound diameter. So when you're trying to get weights down 50, 60, 70, 80 feet or more, having that thin pound diameter is going to allow you to get that weight down, you know, closer to a straight line than the mono. The mono, you're going to see it bow, and the weight's going to end up being drifting up from the bottom some distance. And what's nice about getting it at least one weight right down below the kayak is you're going to pick it up on your fish finder, and there's nothing better than that. You know, you're looking down, you can see this line across the graph. You lift up your rod, the line goes up, you drop it down some line, it goes down. You start marking fish at a certain depth, and you're going to be right on top of them. You can do that. So I have braid here for, it depends on the time of year. I'll cut it down to 20 feet at the least amount. I'll go up to 110 feet if I'm fishing really deep water. Usually I have one rod at 50 feet and one rod at 70 feet. Even if it gets to the mono part of the line, you know, you're getting most of the benefit you're looking for as far as getting your line straight down. So what I do is I have this line set up for the weight, but after that, if you've ever tried to clip planer boards to braid, and there's ways to do it. You can double wrap it around the OR16 clip if you have that style. It's a tougher line, and it's hard on everything. There's that little pin in the middle of the OR16. If that line pulls at all when you get a fish on, that line will literally saw into that pin, and at some point it'll bind and snap, and you end up with getting your planer board back, but the line and the lure and the weight are long gone. So to solve that problem this year, I started putting that braid back onto mono, and that's what's on the rest of the reel. I start spooling my reel with a 20-pound mono, and you get a couple hundred yards of line on your reel, and then the braid, then the 25 feet of mono, and then your 2-foot leader of your fluorocarbon. Like I said, you could use the 20-pound fluorocarbon in the fall for salmon, and in the early spring, or if you're just targeting smaller fish, just put on a 10-pound or whatever you like type of leader, and you'll be all set. So that's about it. I find it works really well. The other advantage of that rubber core weight, some guys will put a snapshot on, and that's what I've done in the past. That literally, that crimping puts a little dent in your line, and I've had the line snap at that crimp. So I like to go with the lead core because it doesn't do that. It's easy to place onto the line. The main function of this piece of lead in front of your snap swivel is, as you are trolling around, your line is going to go through feathers, it's going to go through some green algae, whatever else is in the air. There's cottonwood trees here that leave that out on the lake. So whatever that is, that's going to eventually hit your line and drift towards your snap swivel. Having this rubber core weight, it's got some geometry to it. It does a pretty good job of snagging that stuff before it gets to your snap swivel. So while you still want to get that cleaned off on a regular basis, pulling your line if you think there's something funny happening with your planer board or whatever, it's going to keep from mucking up your snap swivel and swivel and your lure. It'll have do a pretty good job of collecting it right there on the weight. So everything's going to continue to work normally, and you'll still have a chance at catching a fish. So those are my tips. I am definitely going to be using this next year. Dan from Kayaking, thanks for watching. Hope you found this helpful, and hope to see you out on the water.